Hey everyone, welcome to the Sense of Things for another week. And this is a somewhat somber occasion because this is the first time we've ever done the show on 9/11. It is the 24th anniversary of 9/11 today. So we're going to have a little bit about that. We're going to have a little bit about jobs. Today will be my show, like Ron's was last week. We're going to talk a little bit about jobs. We're going to talk a little bit about PPI, CPI, a little bit about the wonderful BLS and their job revisions, and then talk a little bit about what's the Fed going to do next week, because we are a week away from a Fed decision on interest rates. And is that going to really have that much effect? So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Ron, how you doing, bud?
Good, Jeff. Yep. Can't believe it's 24 years. I know exactly where I was, about 80 miles south of the city, and being in New Jersey at the time, shutting down of the highways and only seeing military planes. And yeah, it was a pretty sad time. And I knew a few people in one of the towers. And I was actually at Building 7 2 or 3 weeks before all that.
Oh,
So
wow.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was completely the opposite. We had gone on vacation to Hawaii, and I was working for Fidelity at the time. And actually, I had won an award, and the director of that group, or the VP of that group, really wanted me to be there for this award. And I was like, dude, we're going to be in Hawaii and all that. And he literally offered to fly us from Hawaii to Boston to be there for this award ceremony. So it would have cut our vacation short, and we would have been leaving on the 10th or September 11th. So it was just weird. So we stayed in Hawaii for 5 more days, and then we didn't even have to wait to get out. We had a hotel, everything else. So it was crazy. It just,
Yeah.
and it was surreal because it had all happened by the time we woke up that morning.
Yeah,
So
I got a fun story, not for now, but not a
yeah,
fun story, but an interesting story about that morning, just everything that was going on, just crazy stuff. Stuff that we stopped by the bank. The next day I had payroll.
yeah.
Just the bank ran out of $100 bills,
Oh,
just to give you an
geez.
idea. And it was the regional headquarter bank. Just
Of
some
course.
odd stuff that just you'll never
Yeah,
see.
it was a
Never
weird
saw
time.
before, never see again.
Yeah, it's the day that the world changed for all of us and all of us around the world. So it's been 24 years. It's flown. It's absolutely amazing. Want to remember first today the 2,977 victims of the terror attacks that died on that day, but also remember the close to 2,000 first responders that have died from 9/11 related cancers. And something even worse, I was reading I was reading an article today about from the World Trade Center Health Program, over 48,579 people have been diagnosed with 9/11 related cancers
And a
as a
lot of
result of
that
this.
was the asbestos and fire retardant materials that they
Absolutely.
no longer used in buildings by the time
Yeah.
9/11 happened.
Yeah. Those buildings were built in the 70s and everything, or 60s and 70s. So it was asbestos, and they hadn't really done it. As long as you don't do anything with it, it's fine. But when it becomes atomized like it did, it's horrible. And all those people are suffering as a result. Remember everybody today, remember the world before it changed, and we'll move on. Just want to make a quick mention remembering Charlie Kirk, who was murdered yesterday by some slime. Actually met Charlie probably 2017, 18, somewhere around there in Austin. And he was really at the very beginning of his career and just genuinely one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Very memorable at that point. And like I said, he was a not really known that much at that point, but just want to remember him, and especially his family at this time. Really horrible thing. So that said, whoopsie, let's see, container ship in Long Beach Harbor that pulled up and things started falling off the side of the ship. 30 containers fell off. Oops. At this point, I don't know what happened. I don't think they really know what happened, but it was like a pile of dominoes coming off the side of the
I
ship.
got to tell you, you take a look at some of these container ships. I don't know how that stuff stays on those ships anyway, especially if you got anything of minor or major rough seas.
Yeah.
The way that
They do have, yeah, they
how they
actually
don't
do.
capsize, just
Yeah, they do
crazy.
have strapping that
I
goes over them.
understand that, but just
Yeah.
I know, look, it's the math and the weight and all the other crap, but even I still don't know how those things don't flip over.
I watched a show, one of the presenters from Top Gear had a little show where he was going on to like these everything that was big, like these big things and like that. And he was in the bottom of one of these cargo ships after they had unloaded it. And what you don't realize is as much as stacked up on top is stacked down below decks on there.
Right.
It's just like
You
a
have
big,
to.
yeah, it's a big hole in it. I always thought they just were stacked up on top, but they go way down into the water line and everything. But yeah, I don't know what happened. They unstrapped them and whoop, everything went off the side. It's interesting. It looks like they're still cleaning it up at this point, from what I understand. And some of these things sunk right to the bottom. Ron, you're not going to get your toys for Christmas this year at
Darn it.
Walmart or Costco.
Darn it.
Dang it. Okay, a couple of economic their reports came out this week. Of course, we're a week away from the Fed, and PPI came in way lower than was what was expected. Consensus was 3.3%, came in at 2.6%.
Jeff, you got to show
So,
your screen.
oh, I'm sorry, did it not? Stop share. Let me try one more time here.
We didn't see the container ship either.
Oh, sorry. How about that?
There it is.
All right, let's go back. That's the container ship. Things
There it
fell
is.
off the side. All right, so PPI expected 3.3%, came in 2.6%. If you remember, about a month ago, there was a wild kind of PPI report where it looked like there was a lot of inflation. So this one's kind of snapped back the other way. I think we need one more month to get an idea of, is there a trend there, because it's been all over the fence here. And a lot of it, I think, is tariff related. If this is correct, it's moving in the right direction, hopefully, for us, and the tariffs aren't necessarily having that much effect. CPI came in today. It was right on consensus where everybody expected. So that's good that we're not seeing that snap the other direction. And this kind of, you think if PPI last month was up a little bit, and you would think, okay, this is the throughput of CPI. And if it didn't really go up that much in relation to what PPI did, it'll be interesting to see if CPI next month goes down a little bit on trend with where PPI was this month, or at least stays the same or whatever. So interesting. The Fed is data dependent. One of the things that I always watch is the non-farm payrolls and the JOLTS report. This is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and here's the job openings. Man, they're on a continual run downward here and continue to be on that trend down at this point, which that's not necessarily good. Job creation is came in at 22,000 jobs. We've had a pretty crappy year here, but quite frankly, with some of the Bureau of Labor Statistics adjustments, I don't know if we can even count on this data at this point.
I don't know about that. Some of, you know what, there are some there are some numbers from the BLS that are better than others. We were talking about this before, that it's the source that they're getting it from.
Yep.
It's not really them. But even with the job numbers, I think at this point, we're like almost 100% guaranteed at least a quarter of a point cut,
Yep.
maybe 50 basis point, because they did 50 basis point a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
possibly 50 basis points next week. I think if we see 50 basis point cut, that means they see worse jobs on the horizon.
Yeah. And you peel out the other piece of this is a lot of this stuff in here was a lot of government jobs. If you'd been watching, and we've commented on this before, when you were looking through the reports, it was like government jobs, and then the private sector was here, and you just peeled off the government jobs. And yeah, the private sector is kind of, it's been on trend with where it was. If you peeled that out of here, or if you peel those government jobs out, it's been on trend. It's been somewhat anemic. So it's interesting. Of course, BLS revised their report again for the second year in a row. down 911,000. And I think it was somewhere in that neighborhood last year too, close to 1 million jobs for 2 years in a row, revising that. And I know we disagree a little bit on this. I just think, from my perspective, if this were a private sector corporation that was responsible for giving this information out, somehow the private sector would figure out a better way to get this, but the government just throws their hands up and says, it's the data and the data is the data, and we got nothing to do about it.
It's interesting. I can't remember what show I was watching, but they had a chart up of the last, I think it's 15 years of revisions.
Yeah.
And other than, I think, 2 or 3 years, it was always revised down. I think
Yeah.
there was like 1 or 2 years in there it was actually revised up. So it went across different administrations, but they're never going to get it. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of why is it so far off? And I think it's the source, not the BLS, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, I think it's just BS, quite frankly. I just, once again, I've heard all the excuses from them of, oh, it's the data and all that. With all of the technology we have today,
Yep.
first off, why are you relying on manual freaking reports? And it's like they don't even use anything from maybe like ADP, who does, oh, I don't know, 20% of the freaking payrolls in this
Hold on a
world.
second. Let me just sum it up a little bit better about technology.
Yeah.
Why, when we have in November for elections, why are we still doing the punch cards? Why?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I'm
Well,
thinking about it.
and no
With all the
consistency.
technology,
Yeah,
why do
yeah,
we still have people circling something on that or punching a Chad? Give
yeah,
me a break.
yeah. No, and no consistency across the board. That's the thing. It's like one, I've lived in different counties where, like, one county I lived in, they did everything in punch cards. I moved down here to Austin, Williamson County uses the little machine things. And it's just, why is there no consistency? It makes no sense to me. I just don't get it. So, what's the Fed going to do? I think we're both agreed we'll probably see at least a 25.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, if the Fed is truly data dependent, like they say they are, I think it's going to be a 50 basis point, because a lot of this stuff is eroded off faster than expected. And when you start to look out towards the new home sales, the existing home sales have just come off the cliff this year. Now, we've got to get something going, even to just get it to a neutral interest rate at this point. So,
But here's the problem with a 50 basis point cut now since the last cut. Psychologically, people are like,
absolutely.
how bad? Wait a minute. Why didn't we do a quarter of a point last time? Why is it 50 now? It's, if you remember, 3 years ago when we did 4 meetings in a row of 75 basis points, they
Yeah.
did 50. So all of a sudden now people are like, wait a minute, what is this the beginning of? So if we do 50, we could actually have a bigger sell-off. I
Yeah.
truly believe. But here's the other big thing. We do a 50 basis point cut. The 10-year briefly just breached below the 4% level. If it pulls the 30-year fixed rate for mortgages under 6%, which it's almost there, but if it pulls it to 575, now you're going to see a ton of refis. I have
Yeah.
a new client who's got a 705 or a 710 mortgage. So
Yeah.
anybody it's over 6.5 is going to refinance. So
Mm,
that will help it offset, but people are going to be like, what is this the beginning of? That psychology is going
yeah.
to kick in.
Yeah. And there was a lot of tax cuts and everything that hit in the tax bill and everything else, but I don't think people, even until they see their tax return at the end of the year, I just don't think people have any relation to it. And I know big businesses have already started to make adjustments, and you see it in the capital purchases and everything else with bigger businesses. So that's the world you and I play in, of the companies we're investing. But I can tell you, from working with and owning a tax practice and a bookkeeping practice, the small business owner at this point, it's like they have no clue. They have no feel for what that change is going to be and how they're going to strategize with it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, if it's a quarter of a point, I think the market will like that. If it's a
Mm.
half a point, I think you're going to get people playing both sides of it. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think it could be a pretty volatile next week just to see what happens. And then you get into it. Okay, is the market expecting 50 basis points and they get a 25 and the market sells off and everything else? So I just think shore yourself up a little bit. Don't get too far ahead of your skis. And I know we're doing that on our side, but hopefully we start moving in the direction of getting at least neutral on our interest rates in this country.
Yeah, but what is neutral? I hate when people like when it's going up. Oh, it's a terminal rate. You
Yeah.
don't know what the terminal rate is.
Yeah.
And what is really neutral? Two and a half, three? I think it's probably four was probably a reasonable rate. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's somewhere in between there, somewhere around 3.5%. I think is a more of a neutral rate because then when you add on to when you add, that the little vig, I guess the best way to put it, onto mortgage rates and stuff like that, it gets everything back down into the fives. You will see a massive amount of refis and everything at that point, and hopefully some movement. People possibly going, hey, all right, I have a 3% mortgage. If I move now, I'll get a 5%, which is okay. And you'll start getting some movement in the housing world.
Definitely see more inventory on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening on the news last night when I was going home. They were talking about Miami. People are peeling like tons of listings off the market because they don't want to reduce their rate or reduce their pricing and everything. So they're pulling them off the market. See, okay, let's wait it out a little bit and then we'll put our houses back on the market at that point.
Ah,
So,
well, again, I look, lower interest rates is better, but the other thing is I don't want it to overheat the economy.
yeah,
And I think where the administration wants it is way too low. And I actually heard a couple of really good economists in the last couple of weeks that are more right-leaning have said that 3% is too low.
yeah,
So it's probably somewhere in between. It's probably around 4%,
three,
four and
three
a
and a
half
half to
percent by the
four.
time they get done.
And it's okay. Okay. So you'll be 5.5 to, let's call it 6% on a mortgage. Okay. That's realistic at that point. It hopefully will pull the financing rates down. And if there's any indication out there, people are really tired of paying a hell of a lot for credit cards, because one of our shorts from last week on YouTube went viral where we were ranting a little bit about the credit card rates and the Congress basically just ignoring it completely. So,
Yeah,
all right.
and it's that's not going to get any better. Forget it. The credit card rates have are not dependent on Fed rate,
Nope.
10-year, any of that. They're in
Yeah,
their own world
they
and they
can
got the
charge
politicians in
whatever
their
they
back
want to
pocket.
charge basically at this point. And yeah, it's just nuts.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't think that credit card rate's going to get any worse. And I will say I've actually turned away some clients in the last few months that have had more than $20,000 in credit card
Oof.
carryover debt, and
Mm.
they don't have a plan to get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's not a good client for us.
No, because they're going to be constantly slave to the credit cards at that point. All
Yeah.
right, folks, thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're here. Please keep everybody in mind that we lost on 9/11, and we will see you guys back here next week, and that should be right after the Fed decision, so we'll have an answer for you at that point.
Lots of good chat.
All right. All right. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys back here next week.